This week on Africa Weekly, we travel to a small farming town in the northwest of South Africa that became a hotbed for racial tension 2 years ago. And we take you to Uganda, where one woman has developed a soap that she claims helps protect against malaria. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Cyclone Kenneth, which struck Mozambique on April 25th, has left at least 41 people dead. It also destroyed thousands of homes across the north of the country after sweeping through the Comoros Islands, where 3 people were killed. The cyclone was the strongest to ever hit Africa, packing wind gusts of up to 220 kilometers per hour.
Things just started falling on me. Then I started to run, leaving the door open. I went outside and houses started crashing down, one by one. Clothes, fridges, freezers, everything was falling. Well-built houses too. We ran out to avoid things falling on us, especially on the children.
It came just 6 weeks after Cyclone Idai struck the Mozambican city of Beira, 1,000 kilometers to the south. Bad weather prevented rescuers from reaching some of the worst affected regions, including the holiday island destination of Ibu, which was left speckled with flattened homes. The UN Humanitarian Coordinator for Libya issued a stark warning this week over the worsening situation in the war-torn country.
We're just coming to the end of the 3rd week of the conflict, and we are now counting about 40,100 people who have had to flee from their homes in different parts of Tripoli, but of course mainly the areas closer to the front line of the fighting.
Troops loyal to the UN-recognized Government of National Accord have been trying to take ground from the forces of Commander Khalifa Haftar, who launched an offensive on Tripoli on April 4th. A coalition of Tripoli militias and armed groups from western towns have been slowly repelling Haftar's self-styled Libyan National Army since April 20th. According to the World Health Organization, at least 345 people have been killed and 1,652 wounded in the Tripoli offensive so far. Talks between protest leaders in Sudan and the 10-member Army Council over the forming of a joint civilian-military body that will replace the existing army body reached a deadlock this week. Leaders of the Alliance for Freedom and Change, the umbrella group leading the protest movement, insist the army generals are not serious about handing power to civilians.
The Military Council, for its part, insists that this sovereign council is a military council with civilian representation, which means that the Military Council wants to hold on to power.
South African opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, held an election rally on Wednesday. President Cyril Ramaphosa will face both the DA and the far-left economic freedom fighters in the general election on May 8th. The DA is hoping to highlight the failure of Ramaphosa's ruling ANC party to deliver Mandela's dream of a prosperous and equal South Africa. But about 6 million young South Africans are not registered to vote in the May 8th election, a large swathe of the generation who grew up after the end of apartheid in 1994.
A lot of people, they don't vote nowadays because they say when they vote, their issues are not resolved. People just vote, and then what they told their parties, they just throw it that side and continue with life because they just won. I think my vote maybe can make a difference in our country.
2 days of violence followed Wednesday's announcement of the provisional results of Benin's controversial parliamentary poll of April 28th, which had been held without a single opposition candidate. Large numbers of troops and riot police, as well as hundreds of protesters manning burning barricades, squared off in the streets of Benin's economic capital, Cotonou. Much of the activity was centered around the home of former President Thomas Boni Yayi, who led calls to boycott the election. Owing to tough new eligibility rules, all candidates contesting the vote came from just 2 parties, the Republican Bloc and the Progressive Union, both allied to President Patrice Talon. The 2 parties will share the 83 seats in Parliament.
We reject Talon destroying our democracy like that. We do not accept it. He cannot kill our democracy. Democracy is precious to us and to the population.
Protests rocked this small South African farming town in 2017 after 2 white men were accused of murdering a black teenager. The court heard how 16-year-old Matlamola Maswao was pushed off a moving vehicle after farm workers caught him stealing sunflower seeds. Since then, a reconciliation process led by various local churches has been hard at work to cross the racial divide and unite the community.
Communities will have to decide. We make this broken world a better place for ourselves. And if we don't do it, no one else will do it for us.
Pastor Bella Lemotlo has lived in Kilini all her life and works with Pastor Peters on the Reconciliation Project.
Before we were living in peace, harmony with the white people, we didn't to fight each other. It was so good.
Despite a relative calm over the last 2 years, there are still glaring inequalities in Kilini and in the rest of the country 25 years after apartheid. From the outside, the most visible heritage of this time is still the way many towns are divided along colour lines.
The white people are staying at town, and there is a black people in town who are staying there. So the thing is, there is no white person who's staying in township.
The school principal testified about the racial issues in Kilini during Matswao's murder trial. He says that while not all whites were racist, this particular crime was racially motivated.
If it was a white boy, do you think they would have done that? No. They would not even go to the police station. I think they would have gone to the parents and say, man, this boy is messing our land.
1 month after the men were handed down jail terms of 23 and 18 years for the so-called sunflower murder, the situation in Kilini is calm. But this divinely brokered peace could come to an abrupt end in May as the men lodged their appeal.
80-year-old Ivoni used to have to make frequent hospital visits for malaria, as well as taking care of 7 children. But 8 months ago, she was given a soap that helps protect her and her grandchildren from mosquitoes that transmit the disease.
Before we started using the soap, we would constantly get malaria. But once we started using it, the cases decreased and it chased away the malaria. We no longer fall sick easily.
Joanne Nalobega suffered from malaria as a child, and she made it her life's mission to fight it. She focused on producing a repellent that could easily be used in everyday life. She decided to make a soap, adding ingredients that repel mosquitoes, like different varieties of the citronella plant.
Use our soap like a normal soap, like a normal regular soap you use for bathing, and we advise not to use strong scented perfumes and lotions, and then our soap will be more effective from 5 to 6 hours.
Joanne established her company, Euganics, in 2016. She currently employs 27 people, but hopes to hire more as demand for her product grows. She also wants to help low-income families that often cannot afford expensive mosquito repellents and nets. Currently, around 200 families receive the soap at a discounted rate.
We sell the soap to the high-income earners, the resorts and hotels at a high price, and then we can cross-finance the sales for the low-income earners in rural communities, and they can access our soap at the normal price as they buy our regular soap.
Soap may be an everyday item, but Joanne is showing that in the right hands, it could also help drastically cut the 600,000 annual deaths worldwide caused by malaria.
Uganda held its first Miss Curvy pageant as part of a government campaign to use curvy women to attract tourists to the East African nation. The event was first announced by Tourism Minister Godfrey Kuwanda in February and sparked fury among activists at the time. The Court of Arbitration for Sport on Wednesday rejected Caster Semenya's challenge against the International Association of Athletics Federations. She was challenging a ruling forcing her to lower her testosterone levels to be allowed to compete with women. Semenya has hit back, vowing that the court's decision would only make her stronger. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.